Story time. Y'all, it has been quite some time. I know I've been MIA, but a lot of big life experiences and changes have taken place. I'm really excited about it, and I'll update you guys on it. In the meantime, I'm going to dive into the story. This one is directly from my grandmother, and if you've been keeping up with me on all of my other platforms, you'll know that anything that comes from my grandmother is golden, precious, and something that you are likely able to take a solid life lesson from. It's also usually pretty, I don't want to say spooky, but eerie, okay? Just want to go ahead and toss that out there. So let us dive in. So some time ago, my grandmother was telling me back in Trinidad, where she's from, where she was living, obviously, at this time, there was this neighborhood thief. And I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with that because it's happening now. Even with holiday season, people will literally go take things off of your porch and just walk away like it was nothing, like it was theirs. Like they're coming to your house to pick up their mail. And now, understand, my grandmother has been on this earth for a long time. So there was no Ring doorbell. There weren't any installed cameras, okay? There weren't any electronic ways for you to track other people's movements. If something goes missing, you're starting your own investigation. Or, you know, that's it. It's gone. Somebody else got it. Unless someone else said, I saw this person that looked like this coming on your porch. And at that point, all you have is word of mouth. So, you know, understand this was a long, long time ago, okay? So everybody was upset, you know, people stopped dropping things off at other people's houses, and understand as well that there wasn't a whole internet thing going on. So it was really more or less neighbors saying, I dropped this off in front of your house. I went to the market and I went to get you this. I dropped it off on your porch. People's things were going missing. And not only that, there were gardens. So whomever this individual was, they were getting really familiar with people's gardens. Initially, they were thinking it's the animals eating up their food. No, whomever this individual was, he or she was getting really familiar with other people's territory. All right. Now let's dive into my grandmother's personal life at this time. My grandmother had 9 children, okay? Also not an uncommon thing for people to have lots of children back in the day, especially in the Caribbean. And one of her children was studying to go into healthcare. And the school system in Trinidad was very different, not just because it's another country, but because it was another time, okay? And the way things were going, there were these group of women in this nursing course, okay? And some women would pass and progress on to the next level. Some women would not. And there were no chances depending on how far you had already made it. And my aunt, which is also obviously my grandmother's daughter, had a friend. She had a group of friends, but there was one particular friend that my grandmother was a bit wary of. She was not doing well in the course. We're going to call that friend Lisa. Lisa wasn't doing well. And initially, as I said, my grandmother was already wary of Lisa. So as my aunt, whom we're going to call Mary, because she didn't want her name to be in this actual story, her actual name to be in the story, Mary was doing well. She was progressing, and she kept in contact with Lisa. She was trying to be supportive. She was offering her study tips. She was just being there for her. Eventually, it came to a point where it was time to graduate, and Lisa wasn't going to be graduating with them. Lisa had inevitably failed out of the program. And so Lisa offered to come drop off some of her supplies, some of her school supplies, some of the books that she had purchased, because she had ultimately, for lack of a better word, given up. And so my grandmother was like, you don't need those books. You are going to graduate. And my aunt Mary, was like, I feel bad. I don't want to just tell the girl, no, I don't need any of your stuff. I don't want to seem all high and mighty. I don't want to seem like I've placed myself on a pedestal and that I don't need anything from her. You don't have to give me anything. Obviously, she was overthinking it. I understand where she was coming from, but she was overthinking it. You know, I understand my grandmother's perspective a little bit more. You have succeeded. You don't need those books. You don't necessarily even need those supplies. But my Aunt Mary felt bad. She said, I'm just going to take it so that she doesn't feel like I'm completely writing her off. So at the time, Lisa said, let's say Lisa said, I'll be there around 6 to drop off all of the stuff, right? Initially, they had planned to be home. Then one of my grandmother's neighbors had invited them to come to some sort of event, whatever it was. And my grandmother agreed, and she took her children with her, so they were not there around 6. And they get back, but they don't see anything on the actual porch. So then it dawned on my grandmother, the neighborhood thief probably came and took it. And so now my Aunt Mary is feeling some type of way because she knows that she's going to see Lisa again, and Lisa's gonna ask, did you get the books? And my Aunt Mary doesn't want to be like, yeah, I got them. She doesn't want to lie. So fast forward, a little bit of time does progress, and my Aunt Mary doesn't actually end up hearing from Lisa for a while. You know, she had reached out to her to tell her what happened. And then eventually my Aunt Mary had convinced herself, I'm just going to say thanks for the books. She went to her home. It was not necessarily alarming. It just, again, during these times, it wasn't like, let me just text her. Let me just send her a DM. You didn't have as many ways to get in contact with someone. So when you didn't hear from them, it wasn't necessarily alarming, you know? So a few days goes by, and my grandmother's home, my aunts and uncles, they're at school or wherever it is they're supposed to be. I don't know what my grandmother's doing, but she said she was at home minding her business. Her words, verbatim. I was in my house and I was minding my business. And she hears somebody outside on her porch screaming, oh my God, look what you did to me. Look what you do to me. I can't see. You take my eyesight. You didn't have to do that to me. Let's pause for just 1 second. I need us to all understand that in a lot of cultures, there is such a thing called spiritual wickedness. It has multiple different names in multiple different cultures, but it all boils down to wickedness, evil doing, utilizing or manipulating another realm to do wickedness, okay? And immediately, my grandmother started to put 2 and 2 together. The initial being wary of my Aunt Mary's friend Lisa, the supplies that she was so gung-ho and pushy on dropping off for my Aunt Mary, her lack of success in the nursing program, and everything going missing off of people's porches. This person on my grandmother's porch had to have been the thief who stole the books, doing their thing, her thing, doing her thing, being a thief, being a nuisance in the neighborhood. And whatever Lisa, my aunt's friend, had intended for Mary was actually bestowed upon the thief. And so my grandmother said, child, when I tell you I get up, I walk to the window, pull the curtain, watch the woman bawling and screaming on the porch, and I close back the curtain. I go on back to my kitchen and I continue to mind my business. That had nothing to do with me. It's just really interesting how things end up working out. Excuse me. Sorry. I got this incense burning and I see the smoke and now it is causing me to hack up a lung. Sorry. Back to the story. My grandmother told my Aunt Mary. And my Aunt Mary's wheels then began to turn the same way my grandmother's wheels turned. And she was like, that's why I wasn't hearing from her. So fast forward several years later, over a decade later, my aunt is now preparing to come to the States to build a life in the States. You know, everybody's evolving, moving up in life, taking advantage of the changes and the advantages of life. And she's at the airport and she sees her friend Lisa. She says, Lisa, it's good to see you. Because the thief had ultimately lost her sight. And Lisa was like, oh, it's good to see you too. My Aunt Mary was like, yeah, it certainly is such a good thing to be able to see, isn't it? And Lisa, according to my aunt, just stood there, saying not a word. Not one word. Just sheer shock. And if that didn't say anything at all, it certainly did say guilty. That is the first story from my grandmother, and y'all understand that she's been on this earth for a very long time. So I will have an abundance more to share. I know that so many people on, again, all of my other platforms have requested stories from her, so I'm happy to share this one. I am also working on a graphic novel. I'm not sure if I want it to be a graphic novel or a comic series, but either way, it's going to be called Namakasi. It is shaping out to be exceptional. I post all of the updates and all of the progressive points and milestones on my Patreon. So you guys slide on over there to take a look-see. I have also begun to post interviews with healthcare professionals about the very interesting time that we had just a few years ago, which was the pandemic. I plan on making that a series, again, exclusive to the Patreon, and I would be happy to post snippets here on my channel. I have a new single coming out that is a very exciting project of my own. And then shortly thereafter, I'm working on another single with Blake Quake Beats, who also happens to be my editor, creative director. So you guys should check him out. And just follow me. Follow me, subscribe, share with your friends. Follow me on other platforms. Click the link below. Finally, for my fellow nurse followers, there is a course that helps with managing burnout, helps with managing your emotions. I'm also going to put the link in the bio below. And I encourage that everybody click the link, take a look-see, tell me what you think, leave some comments on this story, share your experiences. Thank you for joining.